Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Naurin. In today's bulletin, we will present important news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Asian community reeling after Lunar New Year shooting. "12 people injured in shooting at Louisiana nightclub." Representative Gallego announces bid for Sinema's Arizona Senate seat. Abortion activists rally 50 years after Roe. Violent protest in downtown Atlanta over killing of activist. Woman fatally shoots dying husband at hospital. Fans, celebs gather at Graceland to mourn Lisa Marie Presley. Avatar marks 6 straight weeks at #1, crosses 2 billion. Huge waves bring Hawaii surf contest the AD after hiatus. Public viewing at Palace for Lost Hawaiian Princess. Memphis on edge ahead of violent arrest videos release. Ukraine's Zelensky honors those killed in helicopter crash. Britain urges parties volunteering to accompany coronation. Lights out in Pakistan as energy-saving move backfires. Poland pushes for more tanks for Kiev, will seek German OK. Turkish Muslims protest Quran burning in Sweden. Shelton Paul give US 3 men in quarters at Australian Open. Bengals win streak hits 10, 49ers also advance. '49ers beat Cowboys 19-12 to advance to NFC title game. And Bills Hamlin attends first game since collapse, waves to fans. Now news in detail. It was a joyful kickoff to the first Lunar New Year celebration in Monterey Park since before the pandemic, with large crowds filling the streets in the majority Chinese American city near Los Angeles for live entertainment, carnival rides, and plenty of food. But the celebrations were marred by tragedy Saturday night after a gunman entered a ballroom dance hall and opened fire, killing 10 people, wounding 10 more, and sending panicked revelers into the streets. The shooting that left 5 men and 5 women dead brought a jarring end to the planned 2-day party to ring in the Year of the Rabbit, which featured dragon dancers parading through downtown streets decorated with red lanterns. Sunday's festivities were cancelled, though some Lunar New Year celebrations went on in neighboring cities, also home to large Asian American populations. "We haven't had a celebration like this in 3 years, so this was momentous. People came out in droves," said Mayor Pro Tem Jose Sanchez, who was there with his 6-year-old daughter. He estimated 100,000 people attended Saturday, and the festival is typically one of the largest Lunar New Year celebrations in the state. The massacre sent shockwaves through Asian American communities around the nation, prompting police from San Francisco to New York to step up patrols at Lunar New Year celebrations in their own cities. No motivation for the crime has been given, and authorities said the suspect was a 72-year-old Asian man. Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said Sunday the man killed himself as police officers closed in on the van he used to flee. But Asian American advocacy groups said it was another blow after years of high-profile anti-Asian violence around the country. A dozen people were injured in a Baton Rouge nightclub shooting, authorities in Louisiana said Sunday. One of the victims is in critical condition, police said. No arrests have been made, but police believe the early morning attack was targeted. This was not a random act of violence based on the preliminary investigating efforts, Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul said at a news conference Sunday afternoon. "We believe that this was a targeted event where someone was specifically targeted and others were injured in that process." 3 Baton Rouge police officers were nearby when the shots were fired around 1:30 a.m. and responded to the Diver Bar and Lounge. They administered life-saving aid until emergency medical technicians arrived. "We believe their immediate response prevented further injuries," Paul said. "Although police have some leads," Paul urged anyone else with information about shooting to come forward. Democratic Representative Ruben Gallego, a liberal firebrand and prominent Latino lawmaker, announced Monday he will challenge independent U.S. Senator Kristen Sinema in 2024, becoming the first candidate to jump into the race and setting up a potential three-way contest. Gallego said he would fight for normal people struggling to make ends meet and losing faith in politicians. He said he and Sinema both come from modest to poor means but have taken different paths in Congress. "I'm better for this job than Kristen Sinema because I haven't forgotten where I came from," Gallego told the Associated Press. "I think she clearly has forgotten where she came from. Instead of meeting with the people that need help, she meets with the people that are already powerful." Gallego, a 43-year-old military veteran first elected to Congress in 2014, had made no secret of his interest in challenging Sinema, a longtime rival in Arizona politics who has been a roadblock and irritant to Democrats during Joe Biden's presidency. She left the Democratic Party in December, registering as an independent and saying she doesn't fit well into a traditional party system. She has not said whether she plans to run for a second term. From beach cities to snow-covered streets, abortion supporters rallied by the thousands on Sunday to demand protections for reproductive rights and mark the 50th anniversary of the now overturned Roe v. Wade U.S. Supreme Court decision that established federal protections for the procedure. The reversal of Roe in June unleashed a flurry of legislation in the states, dividing them between those that have restricted or banned abortion and those that have sought to defend access. The Women's March, galvanized during Donald Trump's presidential inauguration in 2017 amid a national reckoning over sexual assaults, said it has refocused on state activism after Roe was tossed. "This fight is bigger than Roe," Women's March said in a tweet. "They thought that we would stay home and that this would end with Roe. They were wrong." Organizers with the Women's March said their strategy moving forward will focus largely on measures at the state level. But freshly energized anti-abortion activists are increasingly turning their attention to Congress with the aim of pushing for a potential national abortion restriction down the line. Sunday's main march was held in Wisconsin, where upcoming elections could determine the state Supreme Court's power balance and future abortion rights. But rallies took place in dozens of cities, including Florida's state capital of Tallahassee, where Vice President Kamala Harris gave a fiery speech before a boisterous crowd. A protest turned violent in downtown Atlanta on Saturday night in the wake of the death of an environmental activist who was killed by authorities this week after officials said the 26-year-old shot a state trooper. Masked activists dressed in all black threw rocks and lit fireworks in front of a skyscraper that houses the Atlanta Police Foundation, shattering large glass windows. They then lit a police cruiser on fire, smashed more windows, and vandalized walls with anti-police graffiti as stunned tourists scattered. The violent protesters were a subsection of hundreds of demonstrators who had gathered and marched up Atlanta's famed Peachtree Street to mourn the death of the protester, a non-binary person who went by the name Tortuguita. Tortuguita was killed Wednesday as authorities cleared a small group of protesters from the site of a planned Atlanta area public safety training center that activists have dubbed Cop City. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation has said Tortuguita was killed by officers after shooting and wounding a state trooper, but activists have questioned officials' version of events, calling it a murder and demanding an independent investigation. A woman fatally shot her terminally ill husband inside a Florida hospital on Saturday and then barricaded herself in his room for 4 hours before surrendering, Daytona Beach officials said. Elaine Gilland, 76-year-old, told officers that her 77-year-old husband, Jerry Gilland, had been ill for some time and they had planned the shooting together. Police spokeswoman Carrie McAllister said. After shooting her husband at about 11:30 a.m., she refused to come out until about 3:30 p.m. After negotiating with police, McAllister said. Ellen Gilland did not harm herself and no one else was wounded. Part of the hospital was evacuated and some doctors, nurses, and others took cover in locked closets and rooms. McAllister said no charges were immediately announced. Advent Health officials did not immediately respond to an email seeking comment. Lisa Marie Presley, a singer, songwriter, and the daughter of Elvis Presley, was remembered during a funeral service Sunday as a loving mother and an old soul who endured tragedy but preserved as a dedicated protector of her father's legacy as a rock and roll pioneer and pop icon. More than 1,000 people gathered on the front lawn of Graceland on a gray, chilly Memphis morning to mourn the death and remember the life of Lisa Marie Presley, who died January 12 after she was taken to a hospital in California. Some mourners held flowers as they waited for the service to begin under the tall trees on the lawn of Graceland, the home in Memphis where Lisa Marie lived as a child with her father. The mansion, which Lisa Marie Presley owned, has been turned into a museum and tourist attraction that hundreds of thousands of fans visit each year to celebrate the life and music of Elvis, who died in 1977 at age 42. James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water led ticket sales in movie theaters for the sixth straight weekend, making it the first film to have such a sustained reign atop the box office since 2009's Avatar. The Walt Disney Company's The Way of Water added 19.7 million in US and Canadian theaters over the weekend, according to studio estimates Sunday. Its global total has now surpassed 2 billion, putting it sixth all-time and just ahead of Spider-Man No Way Home. Domestically, The Way of Water is up to 598 million. Continued robust international sales has helped push the Avatar sequel to 2.024 billion worldwide. One of the world's most prestigious and storied surfing contests, dubbed the Super Bowl of Surfing, went forward Sunday in Hawaii for the first time in 7 years, with towering wave faces and a gigantic swell that was expected to grow throughout the day. And this year, female surfers competed alongside the men for the first time in the 39-year history of the AD ICAO Big Wave Invitational. The event, alternatively known simply as the AD, is a one-day contest held in Waimea Bay on Oahu, North Shore only, when the surf is consistently large enough during the winter big wave surfing season from mid-December through mid-March. The wind, the tides, and the direction of the swell also have to be just right Large enough means 20 feet by Hawaii measurements. That's equivalent to about 40 feet when measured by methods used in the rest of the US. Before this year, conditions have only aligned for it to be held 9 times since the initial competition in 1984. The casket bearing the 96-year-old heiress, long considered the last Hawaiian princess, went on public display Sunday in the downtown Honolulu Palace that benefited from her wealth. Abigail Kinoiki Kekauliki Kawananakoa's casket, handcrafted from a 165-year-old koa tree that fell during a 2021 storm on the Big Island, arrived at Leilani Palace in a hearse. It was greeted by a traditional Hawaiian wailing and chanting of her lineage before being carried by members of a law enforcement honor guard up the palace's front stairs and into the throne room. The palace is America's only royal residence, where the Hawaiian monarchy dwelled but which now serves mostly as a museum. Kawananakoa was the palace's largest single benefactor, according to her publicist, and even paid its electricity bills for many years. Members of the public were allowed to line up to view her casket and weren't required to wear the shoe coverings that palace visitors normally have to wear as a preservation precaution. A carpet for mourners to walk on was temporarily installed for the viewing. The viewing was scheduled to end at 8 p.m. local time. Memphis was on edge Monday ahead of the possible release of video footage of a black man's violent arrest that has led to 3 separate law enforcement investigations and the firings of 5 police officers after he died in a hospital. Relatives of Terry Nichols were scheduled to meet with city officials to view video footage of his January 7 arrest, according to lawyers for the family. Mayor Jim Strickland and Memphis Police Department Director Carolyn C.J. Davis said last week that video of the arrest would be released after the conclusion of an internal police investigation and after Nichols' family has seen it. But the exact timing wasn't immediately clear. Nichols, a 29-year-old father, FedEx worker and avid skateboarder, died January 10, authorities said. His family, protesters and activists have called for the video's release and for the officers to be charged with murder. Davis announced Friday that 5 officers involved in the arrest were fired after the police probe determined that they used excessive force or failed to intervene and render aid. Relatives have accused police of beating Nichols and causing him to have a heart attack. Authorities have only said that Nichols experienced a medical emergency. The U.S. Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation into the arrest, and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is looking into whether excessive force was used. Now it's time for global updates. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky held an emotional meeting Saturday with the families of those who died in a helicopter crash earlier this week. Zelensky spoke with family members of 7 of those killed in Wednesday's crash in the Brovary area of Kiev, the capital city. The helicopter carrying Interior Minister Denis Monastersky and other top officials slammed into a kindergarten building in the residential suburb, killing him and about a dozen other people, including a child on the ground. At the somber service in Kiev, Zelensky and his wife laid flowers on each of the 7 coffins draped in the blue and yellow flags of Ukraine. Zelensky then spoke briefly with the families as a small orchestra played a mournful adagio. The cause of the crash isn't known, but Zelensky said earlier that it happened because the country is at war. That view was repeated by Russian Stefanchuk, chairman of Ukraine's parliament, speaking after the service. Buckingham Palace plans a weekend of community events and volunteerism to mark the coronation of King Charles III, looking to highlight the monarchy's links to the nation when Britain crowns a new sovereign for the first time in 70 years. The plans were revealed Saturday when the palace released the schedule for the 3-day coronation weekend, which will begin with the crowning of Charles and Camilla, the Queen Consort, on Saturday, May 6. The ceremony at Westminster Abbey will be preceded by procession from Buckingham Palace to the Abbey. It will be followed by another procession, in which Charles and Camilla will be joined by other members of the royal family, and an appearance on the palace balcony. But there will be more to the weekend than crowns, scepters, and ermine robes. The palace wants the coronation to demonstrate that the monarchy still has a role to play in a multicultural nation struggling to deal with the cost of living crisis, budget cuts, and a wave of strikes by public sector workers. Most of Pakistan was left without power Monday as an energy-saving measure by the government backfired. The outage spread panic and raised questions about the cash-strapped government's handling of the country's economic crisis. It all started when electricity was turned off during low-usage hours overnight to conserve fuel across the country, officials said, leaving technicians unable to boot up the system all at once after daybreak. The outage was reminiscent of a massive blackout in January 2021, attributed at the time to a technical fault in Pakistan's power generation and distribution system. Many major cities, including the capital of Islamabad, and remote towns and villages across Pakistan were without electricity for more than 12 hours before engineers partially restored power across much of the country. As the outage continued into Monday night, authorities deployed additional police at markets around the country to provide security. Earlier, the nationwide electricity breakdown left many in this country of some 220 million people without drinking water as pumps powered by electricity failed to work. Schools, hospitals, factories, and shops were without power amid the harsh winter weather. Poland said Monday it would ask Berlin for permission to send German-built Leopard tanks to Ukraine as the government in Warsaw pushes its Western allies to move faster on supplying Kiev with more military hardware to thwart Russia's invasion. Germany has hesitated over sending tanks to Ukraine, but Polish officials took heart from remarks Sunday by German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock that Berlin wouldn't seek to stop Poland from providing Leopard 2 battle tanks to Ukraine. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki didn't specify when the request to Germany will be made. He said that Poland is building a coalition of nations ready to send Leopard 2 battle tanks to Ukraine. Poland needs the consent of Germany, which builds the tanks, to send them to a non-NATO country. But even if there is no permission from Germany, Warsaw will make its own decisions, Morawiecki said at a news conference. Outrage over a Quran burning protest in Sweden produced a second day of protest in Turkey, reflecting tensions between the two countries. Some 250 people gathered outside the Swedish consulate in Istanbul, where a photo of Danish anti-Islam activist Rasmus Paludan was set on fire. Paludan burned Islam's holy book outside the Turkish embassy in Stockholm on Saturday, sparking protests in Istanbul and Ankara that night. Participants in Sunday's event carried green flags featuring the Islamic proclamation of faith and a banner that said, "We condemn Sweden's state-supported Islamophobia." A sign on a window of the Swedish consulate read, "We do not share that book-burning idiot's view." The protests have renewed concerns about Turkey holding up Sweden and Finland's bid to join NATO. Turkey has not yet ratified the Nordic nations' memberships in the military alliance, saying Sweden needs to address Ankara's security concerns. Turkish officials slammed Sweden for allowing the Quran-burning protest, but President Recep Tayyip Erdogan did not comment on it during his weekend speeches. Now it's time for business news. New York stock close price is 15,880.09. The NYSE composite is increased by 102.54 points or 0.65%. Tokyo stock close price is 26,906.04. The Nikkei 225 index is increased by 352.51 points or 1.33%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,264.8138. The Shanghai Composite Index is increased by 24.53 points or 0.76%. Hong Kong stock close price is 22,044.65. The Hang Seng Index is increased by 393.67 points or 1.82%. Bombay stock close price is 60,941.67. The Sensex index is increased by 319.90 points or 0.53%. Now a look of today's sports stories. Ben Shelton's concerns leading into his first Australian Open had less to do with playing tennis and more to do with everything else associated with the trip. His first time outside of the United States. A year ago at this time, he was attending classes and competing in college tennis at the University of Florida, where his dad, a former pro himself, coaches the men's team. As of Monday, when he aged J.J. Wolf 6'7", 6'2", 6'7", 7'6", 6'2", at John Cain Arena, Shelton is suddenly and stunningly a Grand Slam quarterfinalist, one of three American men to make it that far at Melbourne Park, the most for the country since 2000. The Kansas City Chiefs got good news Sunday, learning they will host the AFC Championship game against the Cincinnati Bengals next weekend instead of playing at a neutral site. One problem for the Chiefs, they have to play the Bengals. Cincinnati is on a 10-game winning streak after an impressive 27-10 road victory over the Buffalo Bills on a snow-covered field in Sunday's NFL divisional round. Joe Burrow threw for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Joe Mixon ran for 105 yards and a TD. In Sunday's nightcap, San Francisco held on to beat the Dallas Cowboys 19-12. Rookie Brock Purdy continued his improbable run leading the 49ers, throwing for 214 yards, playing mistake-free ball and leaning on the team's stellar defense. That sets up the two conference championship games on January 29. The Philadelphia Eagles will host the 49ers before the Chiefs host the Bengals. The winners will play in the Super Bowl on February 12. Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin made his first public appearance since going into cardiac arrest after making a tackle against the Cincinnati Bengals 3 weeks ago, waving to fans from his stadium suite on Sunday as the teams met again for an AFC divisional playoff game. The Bills went on to lose 27-10. The crowd at Highmark Stadium erupted when an image of the recovering Hamlin filled the massive screens at the end zones near the end of the first half. Fans turned toward the glass-enclosed suite and cheered. Hamlin, wearing a hooded jacket, stood in front of the windows and raised his arms as if saluting the crowd and encouraging it to get on its feet as the Bengals were facing second and goal at their 5. He ended by forming a heart sign with his hands, his signature gesture. Earlier Sunday, the Bills posted a video to both Instagram and Twitter showing Hamlin arriving at the team's locker room and the message, "Welcome home, Damar." The video showed Hamlin arriving in a golf cart about an hour before kickoff, wearing sunglasses and a face covering, the hood of his jacket pulled up. He was accompanied by his 7-year-old brother Demir and mother Nina. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest updates. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jado TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jaco PD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.